Welcome back to another episode of Hello Ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. We're your hostesses with the mostesses. I am Sabrina,
And I'm MJ.
and we're gonna talk a little bit about some TNA Slammiversary today.
A
Um,
little wrestling.
yeah. And before we get into that, of course, be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, uh, get a fun tattoo, whatever. In the podcast.
Leave us a comment too about who your favorite TNA wrestler is.
Yes, yes. I am sporting one of my favorites. I believe in him heavily, Mr. Joe Hendry. Um, it has been driving me bonkers, and I can only imagine so I got into TNA year and a half ago.
Okay.
Um, and immediately fell in love with Jordan Grace and Joe Hendry.
hmm
I can I see all the time though people who have only ever watched WWE who are like more casual fans making these
Yeah.
comments now talking about like Joe Hendry and how like oh this gimmick's never going to last. He's been doing this for forever. Um
Yeah.
playing and I'm just like first of all, how dare you talk about this wonderful creature as far as like this gimmick goes. And two, you're just making yourself foolish.
I know. That's so goofy.
Yeah.
It it's cool. This was the first like TNA pay-per-view I've watched. I mean, I've watched like clips and things back, like a ton of things, but never like sat down and watched like a full pay-per-view, even though I fell asleep, not because it was boring, but because I was so tired. But yeah, it was cool. It was like, okay, now I've got the TNA bug, and now this is like one more wrestling show I got to add to the to the list. So,
I honestly
rest.
like so I had the TNA network, but or TNA plus
Mhm.
Slammiversary is not included in that, which I was very grumpy about.
Yeah.
But honestly, if it wasn't for all of the like crossover work they were doing with NXT, I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't have purchased. Well, that and I went to the show recently, so I'm a little more invested.
You into it?
Yeah. Um, but I don't know if I don't know if I would have purchased it. I think the working with NXT WWE thing is really starting to pay off for them.
Yeah. It's so cool to see, and it makes me wonder how things are going to pan out in the future. We'll get to this with everything that happened, but with like Mustafa Ali, Nick
Hmm.
Nemeth, like, are we going to see them cross over back into NXT? I don't know. We'll see, but it's kind of exciting to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see Ryan Nemeth do some NXT stuff.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
him and Ethan Page.
Oh yeah, I'm here for that.
It writes itself. Um,
Yeah.
but before we get dream booking, we will actually talk about the pay-per-view. Um, full disclosure, both MJ and I did not watch the pre-show. We just jumped right into Slammiversary. So we
Yep.
started off with Broken Matt Hardy, going against Mr. Dirdango.
Yeah. That was a good
No,
way to start the show.
yeah, like I mean, people get so hyped for Matt Hardy and um Dirty Dang. He's just so infectious.
hmm
Both of these guys are very infectious with their charisma in very different ways. I would be very, my brain just kind of broke trying to think of like Matt Hardy, like gyrating, like,
Wait, what?
yeah. Yeah, I was like, yeah.
You know what you said though, I feel like so being like I've been wanting to get into TNA for a long time and I've been hesitant because I just don't have the time to watch it. And I know I'm gonna get obsessed with it and it's gonna be one more thing that I'm just not gonna
Yep.
have time for. And I'm gonna yeah. But anyway, with TNA, I feel like everybody on the roster is incredibly likable. And like you can see like when you talk about locker rooms, I don't really hear a lot about TNA having like a problematic locker room. It seems like everybody's really tight knit. And so it just feels like you can see that like on camera too. And the way that like the storylines through all of these matches played out, like me being like a casual viewer and being able to jump in and follow exactly what was going on was really cool. So I like that.
Yeah, I will say I agree with the exception of one very specific person being Rich Swan. I will hate that man until the end of time. Because of his you can't even say domestic abuse allegations. Like everyone saw him beat the shit out of his wife and shove her into a trunk. Like,
Oh my God. I didn't even know
um,
about that.
yeah, that's why he was suspended from WWE and then
Hmm.
they let it like they just had him sit home until his contract, I think, ran out. But I was,
Wow.
yeah. Um, one of the reasons I didn't watch TNA actually for a long time was because they hired him after that. Um, yeah, because obviously,
Wow.
like concrete proof that that happened. I think she had dropped the restraining order or the charges, which is very common in domestic abuse situations. On average, it takes 7 times for someone to leave and stay gone out of an abusive relationship. So I
Yeah.
wasn't surprised by that, but like just because she dropped that, you can see no one's just like, you know what's gonna be so fun, honey. I want you in this parking lot to beat the ever living hell out of me and shove me in a trunk and then drive away. That's fun.
Right.
Date
Damn.
night.
Wow.
So
Woof.
that's that's
I learned a lot of things just now that I
yeah,
didn't know.
sorry. So that's my forever. I hope he has a terrible life. Thing about him. But otherwise,
But
yes, I agree.
that's a really frustrating thing about wrestling because I think about that with MLW. I think of that with NWA, like hiring really problematic fixtures
Hmm.
in your promotion. And it's just like, I just don't understand what the thought process is there with the trade-off. Like, what's the payoff? Like, it doesn't make you look, it doesn't add to your roster. It just takes away from your credibility. And so that's frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. And at least in my case, as I said, it was the reason why I did not watch TNA for a long time. Um,
Yeah.
But Broken Matt Hardy and Dirty Dango had a great match.
Yeah. I liked how the story tied in, how that was
Hmm.
easy to follow. Like you knew why those two people were facing off.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that like AEW gets a lot of criticism for that, like with booking more dream matches, but I do really like storytelling based wrestling. I mean, I
Yeah.
like both. I mean, wrestling is wrestling, but it was nice that TNA had that element where it was like, oh, I know why Dango was involved, and it's like it was like Matt Hardy's like avenging what happened to his wife, and like I don't know, I thought the whole thing was pretty cool. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also like that they do like video packages for the matches beforehand as well.
Mhm.
So we also know why these matches are happening.
Yeah,
The next match we had ABC versus the System for the TNA World Tag Team Championships.
sure.
I so the first time I saw ABC, I really like them.
Hmm.
I don't know. They like it's definitely they remind me of someone or like an but I don't know who. I can't even say it's necessarily another tag team. It could be someone like in a movie or something. But like
Hmm.
they remind me of somebody else and whoever it is, there's a positive association in my mind because immediately I was like, I like these guys.
There's a local tag team here that I really like called the Regulators, and they actually come out to like Nate Dogg's Regulators and like the dun 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 dun, dun. And like it's like and everybody just freaks out and starts singing like the Regulators song and stuff. And they're good, and they remind me of ABC kind of when I watch them, except um, one of the guys is more of a brawler style, whereas
Okay.
like less high flying, and the other guy's a big high flyer. It's a cool balance though.
Yeah. Yeah, ABC is very smooth together with their in-ring work.
They are like it feels like a Swiss watch, which is one thing that people say about FTR and why they liked FTR or why people like the Briscoes because there's just like this fluidity that's just really cool when you see it in tag team wrestling.
Yeah. Um and then of course, um Brian Myers, I always think of the um
Edgeheads.
yeah, the
That's
Edgeheads,
what you're
and
gonna say.
yeah, and Joe Hendry's little video about it was the diss track, if you will,
Hmm.
for Matt Cardona.
Sure.
But of course, Brian Myers is in there and, playing with their figures.
Which is so funny because I didn't realize until you told me that was Joe Hendrix. I'd heard that song so many times, and then you were like, "Oh yeah, Joe, you mean Joe Hendry's song?" I was like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
Had no idea. And you know what's funny? You talk about Brian Myers. I know that this is not going to go live the day of, but currently the day that we're filming this is his 20-year anniversary as an in-ring performer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was in a
Yeah.
battle royal with big surprise Matt Cardona.
Shocker.
Yeah,
They're,
it's cool though.
they're just tied together forever.
Totally, broskies for life.
Yes. Yes. Um, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this match.
Yeah.
I was happy that they won. Um, I like that so having in the second match in the death spot, having a title
Hmm.
change like that, I think is really smart on TNA's booking, right? Like,
Agreed. Yeah, I liked that too, and I liked the pacing on the card for everything. That was something that I made a note of too, because it was like this was like hyped up, and then we had Santana and Jake following this, and it was just
mhm.
like more hard hitting, and so it was a nice balance.
Yeah.
I also liked ABC's gear because of course this was in Montreal, and so they came out in like Heart Foundation like montage kind of gear. That was cool.
Yep.
There was one cool spot I was going to comment on that I thought was so slick. It was everybody was on the apron, and then Ace Austin bounced back, and then what was it? He bounced back, and so then Chris Bay took the hit and fell back, and then Ace Austin flung himself over the ropes, and it just like was this sequence that
Yeah.
was just so sick. I was just like watching it, like I wanted to go back and rewind it. It was so cool, and yeah, that was just like that was incredible. So it was cool to watch.
They like these two tag teams worked really well together.
Yes.
You can tell that like it I would imagine that they probably like their styles just match up perfectly.
Hmm. That was how I felt watching the whole pay-per-view actually, because I was just like, wow, everybody just like the chemistry felt fluid, and like you could tell the people who were in there were experienced and just like I almost want to say like empowered, like people really felt trusted to do things in a way that like I don't know, it just felt like a safer space in a way to me. I don't know how to really explain it, but watching it just made me feel like there's a lot of trust between the people in ring for these things. And so everything was just really fluid as a result.
Yeah, I think it helped that like at no point did I think anyone was going to die.
Yeah. Are you saying that when you watch other promotions, you feel like someone might die and someone
Sometimes, yeah.
did?
Yeah, sometimes I feel that
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's definitely risky spots that certain promotions like to feature more than others.
Yes.
So I didn't that's true. I didn't really this felt very like I don't want to say old school, but like it felt old school but modern at the same time. I don't know how to really say it, but it was cool in that way. So yeah, I didn't really feel like scared at all. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Or like I was going like, ooh, sometimes I'm doing that at some matches, especially when Takeshita's involved. I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
It's not worth it, baby.
mhm. Think of your body in 10 years, please. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
very.
and I also enjoyed Mike Santana
Yeah,
versus Jake something. I'm liking Mike Santana so much more in TNA than I did in AEW.
hell
Um,
yeah.
like yeah, I'm really feeling like his energy and like what he's got going on. Whereas before I didn't necessarily connect, and it might just
Hmm.
be my dislike for Jericho that overshadowed him.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was part of a tag team that was known for blood. So I mean that also might have had something to do with it.
I made a note because I was thinking about this during this match. kind of along the same lines of what you're saying, but like I'm really loving him as a singles competitor right now because so much of what we've seen is him being in a tag team. And I don't know if you heard the clips from when he was talking about making the decision to just leave AEW, right? Because Ortiz was really comfortable in a tag team and wanted to just continue, was fine with that placement where they were on the card, and was just kind of like, hey, it's like we're getting paid to do what we love. And then Santana was like, he was really respectful how he brought it up, but he was like, hey, that's not like what I want to do. I want to keep pushing more. And he's like, not to say anything wrong with what you're fine with, but like I want to break off and do my own thing and like carve out my own mold and do my own thing. And so it's like there's no shame in either way, but it's cool that he's made the decision for what he wants in his life and has carved that out. And it's cool to see.
Yeah. And I think it's smart that he went to a different promotion to do it.
Yeah, agreed. And
Um,
it's cool how they're actually tying his real life story into that too. Like
mhm.
the addiction, talking about his daughter and stuff. And it's just, I don't know, it makes you like, it gives you like the feels and it just gives that attachment to his character even more. So it's
Mhm.
not even a character, but him as a person, essentially, you know?
Yeah, it makes you really like root for him.
Yes.
And then
Yeah, totally.
I love that Jake something is such a heel. Like
Hmm.
like you look at him, at least the second I looked at him and like his whole spiel, I immediately hated him. And whenever like it's so funny because like anywhere else in life I would be like well no, I guess movies it's different. You know how sometimes like people get cast constantly as like the villain and you're just like that has to really suck because they're saying like your face you look like a dick.
Yeah. Or like the nerdy like best friend or something. You're like, you don't quite have main character energy, sir. We're gonna need you to step to the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look like you'd be really good at supporting the bottom of the cheerleading pyramid.
Cheerleader number 7,
Yeah.
come forward.
Um, but yeah, I kind of love the fact that someone that was just like, my name's Jake something is like, I don't know. It just tickles me. It tickles me.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, how powerful that match was, how hard hitting it was. It was cool.
Hmm.
That was a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
I also like love anybody coming through the crowd. That's just like a thing that will forever pop me. So Santana coming down and just looking like a fucking total badass too. Loved it.
Yeah. And I also feel like so the first half of the pay-per-view, more than that. Um, yeah, more than that was like I feel like cushioning the audience for what was going to happen in the main event,
Hmm.
um, which we'll get to in my community guidelines violation that I wound up getting on TikTok because of it. But um, yeah. The are you ready to move on to the next match?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
So we had the Rascals, which of course is hodgepodge technically right now of NXT and TNA versus the No Quarter Catch crew, which would be all NXT folk, right? Yes.
Sure, sure.
Um which I like that we're seeing this go both ways. Like
Hmm.
that you have sorry, Cheddar is just like snoring like crazy. It's not just, you know, pulling people from TNA to appear on WWE's stuff. It's going the other
Yeah.
way too for like the pay-per-views. Um, and I never watched the Rascals before, like before they were
Hmm.
split up, and I'm kind of sad about that now. Like again, another team like super fluid.
Yeah. Like their chemistry's still there, which is crazy because they haven't wrestled together in so long and they just like was like riding a bike.
Yeah. Like I wonder if they've just been training together all this time.
Maybe. I know Wesley was out for a while injured
Yeah.
in general. So
Hmm.
that him being that fluid in the ring was crazy to watch. And honestly, I want to back up because I want to point out like the ring gear, them
Oh yeah.
coming out in the Buzz Lightyear gear. But honestly, like I'm a huge Wesley girl. I think that man is just not only incredible to look at, but incredible in the ring. And so him coming out in a crop top, I was just like, sign me up for this, please. Thank you forever. But they looked so cool coming out in that gear, and then they just like watching them kick ass dressed as Buzz Lightyear was also really funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I loved it. I thought that was cool.
It was really fun. And I like I want to know like the decision behind the Buzz Lightyear gear.
Yeah, me too.
Like I'm
I
very
do. I want to know.
yeah. And then of course the no quarter catch crew were fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so funny because like Charlie Dempsey looks so much like William Regal, but
Yeah.
also especially when he's doing backstage stuff with like in interviews with NXT, he reminds me like his face, what he does with it, reminds me of like a sullen teenager, especially how he like kind of slumps
Yeah.
over with his arms, even though he is not at all a teenager. I'm just like, is this the sass you were giving your dad? Is that what we're seeing right here?
You know, it's so funny. This is the first time I'd ever watched Dempsey in the ring.
Oh,
And it was so funny watching, like, it made me feel like I was back in time. Like, it just felt like, yeah, he does remind me of William Regal, but even just like what he brought is like very like classic wrestling to
yeah.
me. Like, so it just reminded me of like even well before his father. Like, I just felt like I was watching something from like the 70s or something. Like the gear style that he wears, the way he carries himself in the ring. I just felt like I was watching like a vintage wrestler. And it was
Mhm.
like I can clearly clock him as William Regal's son, but I also was sitting there like he reminds me of just like this embodiment of classic wrestling.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was cool.
absolutely. Um, and then I think it's Miles is the one who has the hearing issues. Um he had
I'm not
like
sure.
he's yes, I'm almost 100% sure because I think Taven is the Olympian.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm getting their names right. But at any rate, Miles was born like, he had like an illness that took away most of his hearing.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so like he'll post things on social media sometimes like what the crowd hears versus like what he can hear. Um,
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
yeah, and I it has to be so interesting because like think of all the times that like wrestlers call things in the ring.
Sure.
Like he doesn't miss a beat, so he has to be like that much like more tuned into everything.
Yeah. Damn, that's crazy. All right, I gotta follow him now because I want to see what that looks like. Like I want that perspective. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, their match was great. A lot of energy in it. Even with
Agreed.
like clashing styles. Again, these were like opposite end of the spectrum styles, but they melded really well together.
Totally agree. I just felt like this card didn't have a match, in my opinion, that was like,
Yeah.
it was like everything was like very watchable and like
Hmm.
pulled me in and made me go, damn it, I'm gonna be addicted to this now. Like whatever that audio is on TikTok, like, well, I'm addicted to this now. Or like whatever that is, that's me now with TNA. I'm like, all right, here we
Yeah.
go.
Anytime that like I'd pick up my phone with this to like look up something usually about like a wrestler or whatever, um,
Hmm.
and if I'd start falling down a rabbit hole, I'd be like, oh, nope, and I'd toss my phone aside and like focus back in. And that does not happen as often as it should anymore.
Yeah. God. So
Which is
easy.
yeah,
There's so much good wrestling out there. It's so hard.
yeah. Um,
First world problems.
right. This is like the problem I've been hoping for. Like 13-year-old Sabrina, this is all she ever wanted. So,
I know. I know. Agreed.
um, and then we had the Montreal street fight, um,
Okay.
which did feature Rich Swann, which I won't go into my spiel again, but PCO versus AJ Francis. I love that they like PCO's gimmick is just so redonkulous, but he does it so well. That man is like 56 years old. Think about the shit he did in that match. Like insanity.
I made a fucking note too. PCO took some of the craziest chair shots I've ever seen. And then I said, and then he was just thrown on top of two chairs that were back to back with each other, like on top of it. I was
Yeah.
just sitting there like, what the fuck? You don't even see people in GCW do that to each other. Like they're very cognizant of like, you know what? I'm gonna put two chairs facing each other and put
Hmm.
something on top of it and you're gonna land on it, like a piece of wood or whatever. I'm not gonna fucking put you on top of the metal. I was like, oh
Yeah.
God.
That was the only spot during the entire show where I was just like, oh, can we not do that ever again?
That was crazy.
Yeah. Because that was a moment where I picked up my phone. I was like, how old is this man?
Oh yeah, I made a note. Maybe this man really is undead.
Right.
That's-
God.
uh AJ
It
Francis too was cool seeing the heat that he got when he came out. I
oh
was like, this man just I love when he gets so much shit online and I love when like that translates to being a just a classic heel. Like
yeah. Hmm.
it's perfect. I loved how that translated.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And um he PCO, you would not think in this day and age that that gimmick would work, but it is solid. And
Yeah.
so ridiculous. And um the I love that they were in Montreal, so they had like people shouting chants in,
We
yeah, and but had people doing like chants in French and stuff because my
yes.
mind, like I have an auto processing disorder, so like what I hear is never what they're saying, but what my brain comes out with amuses the shit out of me sometimes. Like just like because it's trying to translate whatever they're saying to something related to English. And
Sure, sure.
yeah, like all of a sudden I'll be like, they are not chanting Little Star.
Weed. Weed, weed,
Right?
weed. Like, wow, this is very 420 friendly show. You know what's funny too is like I feel like I knew what PCO's gimmick was, but I hadn't watched much of him at all. And so I was curious how that was going to translate in modern day because people who don't watch it kind of critique it as being cheesy, right? But I
Mhm.
felt like going back to what you said, it translated so well, like in a way that only he could pull that shit off, you know?
Yeah, because by all means that should not work today, but it does. Like I get
Yeah.
so pumped when I see PCO.
Yeah, it was cool. I've seen his entrance a few times and that shit pops me every time. I'm like, that's dope. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so good. And it's so funny. Like if you ever look up like photos of him throughout his wrestling career,
Mhm.
wild, wild.
Okay, I'm gonna do that later. I'm curious now.
Yeah, just because like y- you see immediately like how old he is based on that and like who some of his contemporaries were, and like he's still going and doing crazy shit like that.
Wow. That's dope. Okay. I'm making a note to look that up.
Um, but and I do love that afterwards the marriage proposal,
Oh
PCO
my God, that was so funny.
in his hometown got a marriage proposal.
I kind of wish they would have like drawn it out a little bit more, you know, because she like pretty instantly got down on her knee and was like, "Will you marry me?" But I feel like it would have been like, I don't know. It wasn't bad though. It was just like, I don't know. I love SDL, so I was stoked. I
Yeah,
was like, this is so great. Please more of this. Thank you.
I'm very curious. Like I can't wait to see like what that TV wedding looks like.
I know. I was thinking, I was like, I haven't seen a TV wedding in so long. I was so excited.
Hmm. And because like they've done their whole courtship in such a fun way, like their little
Yeah.
date that they had where, she's drinking and eating whatever it is that he has come up with, like that sludge.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think it's unfair to paint Frankenstein's in such a manner. I'm sure he would like a fine cooked meal.
Yeah, maybe he's like a chicken parm guy. You don't know.
Yeah, yeah. This is discrimination.
It's so funny too, seeing like SDL have this on-screen romance with PCO, and then in real life she's with like GCW's Mance Warner, who like wears like the cowboy boots and so it's super funny to see that parallel to me. I love it. And I also love how she already has like the bangs that are split, but it also gives like the way she styles her hair in this mode reminds me of like Bride of Frankenstein sometimes,
Oh
So
yeah.
I keep picking up on that. I think that's so funny.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, are you ready to move on to the next match?